Hello, it's Kathy McAllister here. I am continuing to work on the Joy to the World candle display, illuminated candle display. Illuminated because it turns on and it has lights on it. Woohoo! Look at that. Okay. So I've done a couple of demos already. I did a short 1 hour version of this, and I have 2 more candles to paint. So I'm gonna just go back over what I'm doing and edit all these videos together to give you the best experience on how to paint this. So if you order this laser cut candle piece from me, as a bonus, you will receive this PDF, this painting pattern for free. So I'm just going to go back over what I did for base coating the candles. These are Country Red, okay, and then this one, I have to double check it, this one was Desert Sand. Let me see if I can find it in my list here. So that's Desert Sand. So the ones on the end again were Country Red. And then the middle one is Antique Gold, or you can use Marigold. So those were the base coats: Antique Gold, Desert Sand, Country Red. The banner was done in Thicket with some highlights of laurel, so Thicket and laurel. Okay, this was done in Thicket and laurel, and I did some variations. I started with red, so that's Country Red with some burnt umber, and also I used some of this Glamour Dust red paint, sizzling red paint. So I used that with the Country Red. So that's what it looks like if you use Red Joy. It's very classic and very subtle, and that one stands out a little differently. So and I had a version as well, I think this is it, where these holly leaves are done in Desert Cactus with a highlight of aloe. So Desert Cactus and aloe. So that was that tone. So that matches this, whereas this matches the banner. Okay. And I'm trying to, let me just double check what I did, what I used on Joy to the World. See, I have to use my cheat notes. Just like you, I've got to use this because otherwise I forget. Okay, so the word Joy to the World is done in Desert Sand, and then lightly sponged on the top to lighten it with bleach sand, and then the bottom is lightly shaded or sponged with honey brown. Okay. So, and then all of these have been done in banana cream to start with. And we're going to do a lot of cool things to get them to look like this. And then I used chalk paste on the candle drippings after, first of all, I did this in bleach sand. So where's the bleach sand? So it's very light, the bleach sand. And then I came back to use this chalk paste. And we're going to go over all of that because I need to, like I said, I'm painting, or I'm creating 2 more of these candles. So the other thing I can say to you is, if you don't want it to be in these dimensional texture pastes, you can also do this effect with just stencil and paint. It does not have to be the dimensional texture paste that I'm using in this. So you can see it's got texture and dimension. So that's an option too. So this is the base, and the candle is going to slide into it. as you can see here. It's a pretty snug fit once you slide it in, so I don't actually even have these two pieces glued together, so I can separate them for storage or whatever if I want. Okay, so I've already glued this together. We can just go ahead and do that, and you would want to paint the top of it for sure, but you can also paint the bottom after they're glued together. So you have these two slotted pieces that go on top, and then this is your base piece. So we're just gonna glue those pieces together. And I am using art glitter glue, which I strongly recommend if you're doing wood laser cut pieces. My bottle, I refill it all the time, so excuse the fact that it is filthy, but it does glue extremely well and very fast. So let me see, I need a baby wipe. Hold on one second. So I use the baby wipe to try to get some of the excess off the edges, and I'm always using my fingers to line up these pieces. Oh, one thing, when I was talking about your base colors on the candles, as much as I can, I sponge and I roll. So I have a roller that I use. One of these kinds of rollers that has the refill sponges that you put on, and so I do that, or I sponge it on because I want to get a nice velvety texture. So you can certainly brush it on, but I tend to do a lot of sponging and rolling on. So sometimes the piece isn't big enough for the roller. Okay, all right. Probably should have put this one on top because this one is definitely not as pretty. It's got a lot of tannins. I wonder if that, nope. So there's a front and a back to laser cut pieces. This one got a little crispy. This is more how you usually get it, with just a little bit of the burnt edge. So a lot of times you need to know what is front and back. So the front, you get this kind of satiny sort of brown, and it may not be quite as heavy as that. Like this one is just very mild. You can barely see it. But what does it look like on the back of laser cut pieces? You have all these little flame up marks. So that will help you to kind of tell. They're sort of irregular flame up marks, whereas the front usually doesn't have a lot of brown, but it's more like satin. It's smoother. It's not irregular flame up where you look like the laser's flamed up. So, and sometimes it's important because it may not fit if you don't put it on in the right way. And I'll show you an example of that in a second. Okay, so again, you can just kind of use your fingers to line everything up and use a baby wipe or a paper towel. I like a baby wipe because sometimes the paper towel, this art glitter glue dries so fast that it wants to dry on the paper towel while I'm rubbing the sides, so I end up with paper towel sticking. So a lot of times I use the baby wipe, and also the baby wipe is a great way to take off some of the excess brown marks that you get from the laser. So, like, I've already cleaned this piece. This piece definitely got a little crispy. Sometimes they do. Sometimes it's a setting that just isn't, it can be the thickness of the wood, and you can get a little bit more burn. Okay, so that's pretty good. If you feel like you want it to be that you want it to be a tighter fit or whatever, you can use clamps like this. You just have to watch your clamps, because sometimes when you put them on, they'll tend to move your pieces. So, all right, so that is ready to dry. Okay, so when I was doing the candles, it's pretty easy to tell which direction all of them go, with the exception of the red ones. Okay, so these flush up. So these in the, I think it's desert sand, yeah, it's desert sand, they flush to the center one. But these, the red ones, look identical to one another. So once you put the texture paste on, you can't see the outline. This little outline right here, you can see, is where the banner is going to go. So the banner goes across these candles, and there's a mark right here that shows you that this is the left candle. But once you put all this texture paste on, you no longer can see those marks. So this is actually not on correctly. These little snowflakes are supposed to light up. They don't, because they're not aligned correctly. So if you're using the texture paste, if you're using paint, it won't matter. But if you're using texture paste, which will hide those score lines underneath, what I did is I marked these. So I know that this one, it says it's on the left end. Okay, and this one is also a left end piece, and this one says it's on the right end. Okay, so you only need to do that for the two red candles, but I do recommend doing it, otherwise you could end up like this. So I'll show you when I light it up. Okay, so this candle is lit, and these two, they're misaligned, so it's not showing. Okay, so on the back, you do want to add some kind of paint. If you want to do something really fast, you can take a baby wipe and dip it in like burnt umber or asphaltum and do a faux stain on the back and then seal this up. But you do want to do something on the back. I did kind of an antique distressed sort of paint on this. Just something so it looks nice and presentable. And then this, on the stand, I did use the baby wipe technique. And I'll just show you that right quick. Since I have one of these is dry, I think it's this one. This one is dry. I think it's this one. Since I'm doing two candles, I'm like, what am I doing? Okay, so you can take like burnt umber, espresso, asphaltum, anything like that, and then get yourself, this is just the one I was using to clean the sides, so it doesn't matter that it has a little bit of tannins on it. I'm going to use burnt umber, and I'm going to put some on my palette, and then I'm just going to pick it up and kind of condition it on my palette paper, and I'm just going to rub it on. Now you could start with like honey brown too if you want. That would be kind of a lighter, a slightly redder tint. But anyway, see how fast and easy that is? And like I said, you can do that on the back of your piece. And I'm going to do it on this side as well. I may need to get more burnt umber. And you don't have to do the bottom, but I'm just gonna do it. It's nice to have a finished bit on both sides. And then to make it a little darker, I'm going to go ahead and shade around the edges with the burnt umber. Also, I want to show you what it looks like if, say, we want to do this in honey brown. So I'm going to do the second one in honey brown. I'm going to get a different baby white. Okay, so the honey brown, And you can see then by me doing it which finish you like, which faux stain you prefer. Okay, so now we're going to use the burnt umber and shade it. So I use an angle brush when I shade. So dip the toe in, condition it a bit. Okay, since I just got my brush out, even though I dipped it in water, it is definitely a little dry, so I need to get it a little bit more hydrated. Okay, so some people will, to take some of the moisture out of their angled brush or their shading brush, they will use a paper towel. I find that takes out too much moisture. This is kind of a dirty sponge because it's got lots of paint in it, but one of the things that Tracy Moreau says is if you take a sponge like this, you can use it in your in your shading. Okay, I went and I got a new sponge. I meant to get this sponge. I just misplaced it in my studio. So instead of when you dip into the water, instead of drying off on a paper towel, if you have a damp sponge, it can help you to control the amount of moisture. And I'm in a very dry area in Colorado, so using a sponge allows me to have just a little bit more moisture. So basically, again, you're dipping into the water, which I just did. You're tapping off a little bit on your sponge. You're picking up your shading color. You're conditioning it into the toe of the brush. You're coming over here and you're just pulling it. And if you want to walk it in, you can walk it in like this. So walking in the color means that you bring it down and into your project. Okay. So you see how warm that is. So again, this is the honey brown. And I kind of like the tone of the honey brown shaded with the burnt umber or espresso or spaltum. And you definitely want to seal this piece as well with whatever varnish or sealant that you use. The wood, it just feels very dry. So it feels like it's just really dragging. So sometimes it's like that. I have my heater on. I don't know if that makes a difference. So that's how you do that shade. And I'm also going to shade this one. And you could, since this is burnt umber, you could come back with a slightly darker shading color. Like even a soft black. But I'm going to stick with the, so this is tone on tone, because it was stained with the burnt umber, and now I'm coming back and shading with the burnt umber. So we'll see. We'll see if that's got enough oomph. So sometimes it's just nice to have a little bit, even though this is a piece that's not a focal point, it's still nice to have shading on it. It just makes it a little special. So you can see it's just not as much of a contrast. And like I said, if I wanted to come back with a darker color, I could, but I don't have a lot of dark elements in my candle. It's all tones of brown. There's not really any blacks in my piece. So I think I'll just keep this with the tone on tone burnt umber shade onto a burnt umber faux stain. And you certainly, if you want to, you can go back over any of it, make it darker. But I'm going to just set those two aside. But you can see there's a big difference in the way it looks. This one I could probably, this looks like it needs a little bit more shading here. Again, these pieces here are just soaking up the moisture. And if you don't like shading with a brush, you can use a craft sponge and do this process. So you don't have to use a brush for that if you don't want to. But you can see on this why my sponges eventually get really dirty. So, oh well. All right, so some of these are kind of in the process of being worked on because of some of the other demos that I was doing. So I'm going to go ahead and put my stencil paste on these pieces, and I really only need to show you one, how it works. So I've already done the texture paste on this one. Oops. So it's the Harlequin Diamond piece. So it's this one. And of course you can use any kind of stencil, I like the geometric shapes on this. So although snowflakes, I know they're still geometrical, but I like that kind of more structured stencil. So any kind of stencils you have at home, I do have these on my website. If you order this piece from me, I've been including these in your order. If you are cutting your own candle display, then, you know, use whatever stencils you've got at home. No need to go out and buy more. Okay, so I'm going to do, I'm going to demo just one, because once you've demoed it, you know what's going on. So this is, just double checking, yes. So this one is what I'm calling the elegant stencil, and then the skinny one has the snowflakes on it. So you want to, you do need to kind of line it up at the bottom. So you want it to be straight. You want your elements to be straight. And You can use a heavy, thick gesso, or you can use texture paste. This is paper texture paste by Prima and Art Extravagance, Finnabar, Prima Marketing. And I do have this on my website. I carry that on my website because it is amazing. It's very creamy, so it doesn't drag. Some texture paste will drag. And the other thing I love about it is that because it's a paper texture paste, it is porous, kind of, not really porous, that's not really, but it absorbs color. That some texture pastes that you'll find are designed to repel color, but this one actually will take in your colors, and that's what I want on this project. Okay, so if you want to tape it, you certainly can. I'm gonna wing it, and you don't want it to go up into this area up here too much, because your wax dripping piece needs to lay flush up here. So be very careful when going up there. Kind of keep it underneath the wax drippings. So you can wipe it off if you get it in places you don't want it. I'm going to take it just a little bit up there. And if you're just using paint, it doesn't matter. It will be covered up. But with the texture paste, if you want the wax piece to lay flat, if you put the texture paste all the way up to the top, it will not, these pieces will not lay flat up there. So, and once you get going with this paste, it does kind of quasi hold, the paste kind of holds everything in place. So you're not having to worry about the stencil moving. So I'm pretty much smoothing it out as I go. I'm not trying to make it really thick. Don't also want it to be very thin. So if I see places where I'm seeing the stencil, then I might come back in with a little bit more. And if I'm seeing areas where it's really uneven, I might come back and level it off a little bit. All right, so let's lift and see what it looks like. Yeah. Okay, and one thing you want to do after you're using this paste, when you're done, you want to immediately go and wash that off. I couldn't wash this one off when I was doing the demo the other day, so this is like permanently affixed to it now. Okay, so the other thing you want to do is, because this has to lay flat against the other candle pieces, you want to use your finger or a baby wipe and get the stencil paste off the sides. So you are able to use a sanding block after it dries and remove anything that is left to smooth it off. So then set it aside. It takes a little bit of time to dry, and you don't really want to start painting on it until it is fully dry. Okay, so that's how you do that, and I'm going to do the rest of them, and I'll be back when I'm done. I did forget to tell you something. Okay, so this is the light hole. You can do this when it's dry too, but the little light hole, and they're only on the red candle, I think. No, they're also on the middle candle. So there's 3 holes you need to be careful of that you don't want to cover up. But like I said, you are able to come back when this is dry and poke it as well. So I have this really elegant pokey tool. I'm not even sure where it came from, but it comes in very handy in everything I do. My little pokey tool. So, you know, put that hole in there. Now you need a dry brush. I have this one that I'm going to use, dry brush or a stencil brush. And you're going to take Country Red. And you're going to use that with your Harlequin stencil. As you can see, I'm not as good about cleaning up the paint from my stencils, but you really have to get the texture paste off. And also make sure that you have, that you've dried your stencils too. You don't want to put a wet stencil on here. So, okay. So you can use a stencil brush, a dry brush, a sponge, and you're not trying to get all of the paint off. You just don't want it to be slipping underneath the stenciled area. And you're just going to come back with the Country Red. And like I said, up here, it's okay if the paint goes where the wax dripping piece is going to be, because your main thing is, it's going to be covered up. It's just you don't want the texture paste because it's too, the wax piece won't lay flat. So if you get paint up there, that is perfectly fine. Okay, so you can see that there's some of this, the texture paste is kind of showing up as a white line, and we're going to fix that by doing some color washes. So don't worry about that. Okay, just dry this a little bit. Okay, so then you're going to use, well, you don't have to do that. I was going to say, you don't need to do that. When you have a small stencil like this, when you're putting the texture paste on, that's how you keep it straight, by going to the last one that you did. But so you use, when you have a smaller stencil than the space that you're filling. But yeah. Okay, so I'm going to continue on with Country Red, and I'll be right back. Now we're going to do this again, but we're going to add this fine glitter paint. Now, if you don't have this, you can take a really fine red glitter and mix it with like a little bit of flow medium or sealant, not flow medium, but like some kind of sealant that you might have. Because really all you're trying to do is get a little bit of glitter on your pieces. So any kind of liquid varnish that you have, let's see, even like, you could even use like a glazing medium or Duraclear satin varnish, and mix a little glitter into that. Don't use your best brush when you do that, when you apply it, because that varnish and glitter can get into your good brushes. So probably use something that's a little bit scruffy. So you're just going to go back over. I'm just using my dirty brush that I already had Country Red on. I'm just going back over it. So I'm taking off some of the moisture as I go, you can see. Okay. There we go. So it really, there's a lot more glimmer and shimmer and shine in real person, in real life, in real person, that you can't necessarily see here. But trust me, it makes a big difference. It goes from being kind of flat to having a real pop. So I'm going to continue the rest of the piece with this. I'll be right back. All right. So like I told you, we're going to deal with these little white bits popping up by using some honey brown, and we're going to create a color wash. The candle right now is kind of flat because it's just antique gold. So again, that's honey brown. So I want to show you here what this looks like. So you can see in here, there's something extra going on, and that creates a real richness and depth. So as opposed to, huge difference. So these little extra steps really do a lot to kind of make your piece multi-dimensional. Okay, so you want some kind of round brush that will hold moisture. I tend to use these Lynn Andrews brushes that are designed for color washes. I picked up a Sharp as well. So this one is an 8 and that one's a 7. The thing about the Lynn Andrews is you can see it has this natural point on it, which helps you to point in. But some kind of round brush that will give you a little bit of extra moisture and maybe has that kind of pointed look to it. And you want to get it pretty inky, not milky, but inky. So inky is more watery than milky. And then kind of touch it off on your paper, because you don't want it, when you're mixing it like that, you don't want it to come over and be too wet. So it's okay now if you don't want to do it that much, but it's okay if some of your color wash climbs up on the red area, but you definitely want to get in there and get those white lines. So, and if it climbs up onto the red area, that's fine. It will just make them look a little bit more complex. And the fact that some of these stenciled textured pieces are not perfect, that's fine too. That it's just all in the charm of this piece. So these oldie worldy candles. So, and just make sure you've got enough paint that it's not so thin that it just looks watered out and it's not covering your white lines. You definitely want enough paint in there that you're getting those white lines covered. So you got to find that Goldilocks amount. Too thick and it just covers up everything, and it doesn't, you're almost leaving like a bit of a mottled look behind. So color washes just create texture and layer and, you know, just a lot more interesting colors going on. And if you get a little bit too much of the color wash accidentally up on the top of the stenciled area, just pat it with a paper towel or your finger. So you could come in and just dab it a little bit. So yeah, it takes a little time to go in and out of these pieces, but it makes such an interesting piece than just having the straight antique gold or marigold or whatever you're using as your base. And I always say with these laser cut pieces, you can do them really simply. Just base coat and do a little bit of shading and highlighting, and that's it. But they also they can lend themselves to a lot of interesting things if you layer colors through color washing or dry brushing or other techniques, and you just build. And yeah, it takes a little bit longer. Maybe if you're doing a show and you're selling your pieces, you're like, yeah, I'm not going to spend that time. But sometimes it's the thing that will sell your piece if you're doing a show. And then if you're just doing gifts for family and friends, you do want to go that extra mile, make it super special. So it just depends if you enjoy doing this. Some people don't want to, find it's like, oh gosh, I want to slap on some paint and be done. And that's fine too, because the laser cut pieces work great for that. So after we do this, we'll do some shading. And after you do one coat, if that's good enough, you like it, then leave it. If you feel like you need to come back and touch up any area, you can do that too. But you see how this bit of color washing can kind of hide some not so perfect areas. Because when you're dealing with texture paste, it doesn't always go down as smoothly as if you're just stenciling on paint. So, you have to do some things to make it, fix the flaws, hide the flaws, enhance the nice things. So, of course, I can paint up here because it's going to be covered with your drips. Okay, so that's a lot different than it looked a little while ago. So there's all this lovely richness going on. Okay, I got to dry this, and then we're going to come back and do some shading. So I have my burnt umber again, and I've got my shading brush. Again, if you feel more comfortable going around the perimeter with a sponge or something, you can give that a whirl. So I'm going to just start down here. And you can walk this color in a little bit. It's a little bit more challenging because you do have texture there. So you're kind of having to work that shade in a little bit. And maybe you decide that you want the left side to be a little darker than the right side, so then you can walk it in a little bit here, but more of a straight line effect there. If you see any of those little white lines, be sure to cover them up. Okay. And again, you know, you're having to kind of work it in a little bit over that textured area. But I have to say that the mixture of antique gold and honey brown and burnt umber or espresso is just gorgeous. It's just really pretty. I love honey brown. It does some interesting things. Okay. All right, so we need to go ahead and put shading up at the top. I want to show you the score lines are a little shorter, smaller than this actual piece. So when you shade, you need to walk it in further than what you're seeing score lines as. These pieces are designed to be a little bit bigger than the scored area because they have to cover the scored area. If they were the same size as the scored area, then you could see the scored lines if you didn't place everything just perfectly. So I'm going to come back and do this again. This is just my first go round here. And of course you can get it up, you can get your shade up outside of the score lines because it's all going to be covered up. So that's another thing about laser cut pieces, that they're kind of forgiving that way, because if you're layering all this wood together, you can hide some of your boo-boos. You don't have to be absolutely perfect. Got a big mess of wires over here. Okay, so always make sure that before you put your next layer of shading down, that your previous shading is dry. Okay, so this is the big candle, and it has the big wax strip piece. So that looks good. I think that works. Okay, and of course we'll tackle these in a little bit. This one I've already done, but I will show you how I did them. Okay, so let me dry that. Okay. So we got that done. Now we're going to work on the red candle. So it's got a combination of, I got to look it up again, metallic gold, antique gold, a little bit of burnt umber, and then more metallic gold. Okay, so we're going to start with metallic gold. Any kind of metallic gold will work. I have that one from Deco Art. Okay. Okay, so same thing. I'm just gonna use this. You can use a stencil brush or a dry brush. guess I could have done that earlier. Okay, and you can go up and out above the stenciled area with your gold. So this technique of using gold metallics with different colors it's a process, a technique that Erica Joanne uses a lot, although she also uses colored pencils as well as acrylics when she's doing this. And you know, we often think of you know, metallic is shiny and bright, and you know, you get a lot of vivid color out of it, but in some ways it can be flat. So it's kind of one-dimensional. It's like you get lots of shine, but you don't get any contrast or anything to play off of it. So again, you can build layers of color and interest by combining different colors with your metallic. Or you can just leave it like that. Oops, I missed some down here. But if you only use the gold, then you need to have really good coverage. I'm purposely not making it really full, because I'm going to come back and add these other colors. Okay, so then I'm going to use a little bit of the antique gold as soon as I find it. There we go, the antique gold. Okay. Now I'm just using my dirty brush. Oops, gotta put this back on. Oh, where does it go? There we go. Ah! Stop moving around. It really needed to be dried a little bit. I should have done that. Okay. And I'm going here and there. So, you know, I still had a little bit of metallic gold in my brush as well. Let me hit that with the blower. Okay, now, just for grins, I didn't do this originally. It's not in my paint pattern, because I went straight to doing some burnt umber, but just for grins, I'm going to see what it looks like by coming back with a little bit of honey brown as well. Okay. So the honey brown's going to be a little darker than the antique gold was. So it's going to add something else. Okay, here we go. And again, we're going to get rid of the lines in a little bit. Okay, now we're going to come back with a bit of burnt umber. I'm just using my dirty brush. So whatever color combinations happen, that's cool with me. I'm just going with it. So anyway, all of these contrasting colors then will help you to appreciate more the gold that's there. Okay, so you can see you've got all that loveliness going on. Okay, so the final thing, you're going to come back again with gold. I'm going to just clean a little bit of this because I do want the gold to be prominent in my brush. So I am going to clean that up a little bit there. Not completely, but a little bit. Okay, so just gonna start putting it again back on. you know, put as much gold as you want. Like if you want it to be a little bit more shiny, because you'll still get some of the darker colors coming through. So that's kind of what it looks like. Okay. So I need to dry that, and then we're going to do some color washes again, similar to what we previously did. So I'm going to dry that. So now we're going to do the color wash to hide some of the little boo-boo lines or the white bits that are showing. This one isn't too bad, but we're going to use the Glamour Dust again, the sizzling red. So if you don't have this, then you just need to come back in with a color wash of the Country Red and make sure that you don't have any white showing. So, you know, use a color wash. Don't just use solid Country Red. But if you have this, we are going to use a little bit of a color wash. It is already thin, so you don't have to use a huge amount of water, and that's just going to completely change the nature, having this glittery red underneath. You do need a little bit of water. You don't want it to be 100% because it's just too thick. That way you don't get the same sort of look. So you could always try Country Red. If you don't have this, you can try Country Red with a little bit of glitter, very fine glitter, not chunky glitter, very fine glitter, and red glitter. And or I guess you could put crystal colored glitter, and do a color wash with that. You can play around with it. And again, if the color climbs up, you can tap some of it off, or you can just leave it if you like it. Okay, so you just keep going with that until you feel like you have enough on there. It's pretty easy to see where you've been and where you haven't been, because it will have that little bit of glimmer showing through. Okay, dry that a sec. Okay, so one of the products I'm going to use is this Neon Fiery Red, and you can see it is kind of pinkish red in here, and you can skip this if you don't like it. But all it does is it creates just another element of layering color. So again, we're going to kind of do a color wash, and you don't have to have it everywhere because it is a little strong. You're just going to kind of bring it in some of the places in here. So literally you're treating this as a highlight. So that's why it doesn't have to be everywhere. So that's enough. You don't need much more than that. It's just enough to create a little bit of interest to the eye. And now we're going to go back to our burnt umber, and we're going to do some shading. Get some of that there. Okay, so burnt umber, and we're going to shade the same way we did before. Okay. I think my brush is dry again. It's just really drying out. That heater's, I've got it going full blast on my feet. It seems to be drying out everything. So on these two candles that we've done already, the center candle and the red candles, you shade with burnt umber or espresso or something like that. But then on the lighter candle, we're going to shade with honey brown. And it's fine if the shading gets stuck in there. That makes it interesting. I need to get a new pile of brown there. That my burnt umber is getting pretty old. It needs to be rejuvenated, but I'll get it in a second. It's a little bit harder to see the score lines on this red candle. So I need to go back in there and be more precise on the shading underneath the wax drippings. So okay, so this piece hasn't been done yet, so you're not getting the contrast like this piece. Anyway, so that's all you have to do on that little candle. We're going to move on to these next. So now we have this candle, which is the middle ones. Okay, so they're shaded with honey brown. And we need to go ahead, even though this is white, we want to go ahead and add in some snow white just to make sure it's white. So it's bright white. So the paste can be a little bit off-white. So we got to figure out where we were with this. This isn't as straightforward. The other ones had all this these repeating elements. It was really easy to figure out where the stencil went. Oh my gosh. Oh, what am I doing? What am I doing? I may have to pause this video so I can figure it out. I'm trying to guide you guys along, and I can't even find my way on this stencil. Nope, that's not it either. Do I have it upside down? Maybe. Oh. Oh gosh. Give myself a giggle. Nope, that's still not it though. Okay, let's see. This one ought to be easy to figure out. Okay. Okay, I am going to pause the video while I figure this out. Okay, mystery solved. So this should have been the giveaway because this is the only part of the stencil that's as small as that and that has a whole snowflake. So I don't know, my brain. You got to get it engaged sometimes. All right, let's brighten this up with a little bit of Snow White. Let's just, and you could go straight to the pearlescent with this. You don't have to come in with the Snow White paint if you want to skip this part, but we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. It will just make some of the bits brighter, and if there's areas that we didn't get fully, like up here, we will hit them with the stencil. So it's all good. So any kind of snowflake, I know that we all have snowflake stencils. Let's be real honest. We love our snowflake stencils. But I do like the jaggedness of the flakes. They're really, this is a really interesting stencil, and I don't know who made it. So I didn't keep the packaging, so I don't know who made this. Okay. All right. So now we have a little bit of white. If you want it whiter, you can go over it again. So let me try that. And now we are going to come back with one of my favorite products, Deco Art Enchanted Shimmer White, which is being discontinued. Yeah, one of my favorite products, and it's going bye-bye. I'm very sad. So if you have some of this in your stash, that's great. If you don't, you can use all kinds of pearlescent paints. You can take a pearlescent paint and add in some glamour dust, because this is very, very, very fine crystal glitter. And you can mix it into some pearlescent. You can mix in glamour dust with some white paint. You won't get the pearlescent effect if you do that, but eventually we all have to come up with some substitution. Oh, I gotta put this back on. So you notice when I dry this that I always take off the stencil, because Mylar, I think they call it PET. It's a type of plastic. It will melt easily with a heat gun. So PET plastic, Mylar, whatever brand you're using, it will melt. So you always have to heat your elements underneath the stencil with out the stencil. You must remove the stencil. Unless you want to throw out and replace it. It will melt like butter. There we go. So there's a lovely shimmer in there. And if you wanted to shimmer even more, after you do the shading, you can always come back with a little bit. You can put stencil back on and come back with some varnish, and then sprinkle on some glamour dust. So, but there is a caveat. Probably if you do want to add glitter, I would say make sure you seal and varnish all of your pieces before you add glitter, because putting varnish on top of glitter, it will make the glitter less vibrant. So it will partially mask your glitter. So like if you wanted to use glamour dust on another step, after you do all the varnishing, you also need to make sure everything's fully dry, because the glamour dust will stick to any kind of wet varnish or anything like that. So it needs to be fully dry. But like at the very end, if you want it to come back with even more of the glimmer, you can do that. So yeah, a lot of people aren't necessarily aware that varnish dulls the glitter, any glitter that you put on. So you're always best varnishing before you do a glitter step. All right, so that's probably pretty good. So let's see, I don't know if I've got a, whoops, if I have a snowflake candy, but these are kind of done the same way, that you're going to do Snow White, and you can sponge it on, or, you know, I've got this little stippling brush, and you're going to need to really get the snowflakes good, whoops, good and covered. You want to try to cover all the sides of the snowflake, because the laser creates these tannins, and they will try to discolor your snowflake because it's got so many edges, right? And so all those tannins will try to leach out. So you'll have to see how many coats of the white that you want, and then the last coat that you do is this. And if you don't have this, the last coat you can do would be pearlescent, and then sprinkle on a little bit of glamour dust, something like that. So whatever your favorite pearlescent is. Okay, so I need to dry that, and then we will do some shading with honey brown. So let me just dry that right quick. So honey brown, and we're going to shade it the same way we were shading a little while ago. It's just that because this is such a light piece, you don't want to use something dark like an espresso or a burnt umber. You want to use this honey brown, will make it look like cinnamon toast. So this is just a really pretty color on top of this desert sand. I love desert sand. I didn't realize how much I loved desert sand. It's a very kind of taupey tan. Just has so much life to it. And it works really well with bleach sand. So if you're wanting something that's got more of a neutral tone to it, as opposed to, you know, you think of tans, are light browns and they've got red in them. Well, this is more neutral because it does not have the red tone in it, but the red tone works really well with it. So it just makes it, I don't know, very rich, very rich. I think cocoa also would work, but honey brown has a little bit more of the red and honey tones. So I always really analyze colors a lot. I do kind of like color therapy when I'm doing projects. The way that I line up my colors, compare them, figure out the tones and the mood that I want on a piece. So, which is why I use a lot of different colors. So when I teach classes, I often am using colors that people may not often use in some of their classes, but all artists and artist teachers, they have their favorites. They have their favorite colors. For instance, I have a hard time breaking away from kind of sagey blue-green colors that, like if I'm doing Christmas trees, I don't tend to go the bright green. I tend to go like the thicket. So it's very hard for me to back away from that. You know, like desert cactus. I like all those colors that always have a little bit of blue and a little bit of green. So it's very hard for me to break from that. And it's the same when I pick my blues. I like blues that have a little green in them, like a Bahama blue, so a turquoise. So I have to force myself sometime to say, pick a periwinkle, a blue with a purple, or like a colony blue or a robin egg blue. I don't know. All right. So that is so beautiful. It's just very, very rich. So you can see it there. Very rich. Okay. I'm going to dry that and we'll move to the next step. So we have these little, wax strips. I don't know what else to call them. Wax strip pieces. And remember, I am doing 2 candles at a time, so that is why there's 10 of these pieces here. Okay, so I am creating this wax strip effect by using, that one is still wet, by using this product called chalk paste. And you can use thick gesso or any kind of texture paste. Deco Art has some products, quite a few products, even like their frosting would work. I'm using sand, but I have these on my website, and I have other colors, like there's a desert rose, I think, that will also work. And you'll be kind of buttering this, you know, acting like you're just applying it like you were buttering toast. So, and you don't want it to make a straight line, so lose that effect. You want to think about how wax melts. So you can initially put this on with a palette knife, and then you can smooth it while it's wet with the damp sponge stick. And then once it's completely dry, you can come back if you need to and do some sanding with a sanding block. And you don't want to do your shading until this is completely dry. So work on some other aspect of your candle project while this dries. So you have to have enough water in your sponge stick so you don't get like soft peaks. You know, like if you're icing a cake, sometimes you want to have soft peaks, or if you're doing a meringue, you want soft peaks. But this, you don't. You want it to be more melted, the appearance to be more melted. So just something like that. Okay. So it does take a while, like I said, to dry, so move it out of the way so you don't mess it up, because I was just working on one and I laid another piece on top of it, so I've got to fix that. So a damp sponge stick would really helps in that situation. And you're trying to get it to look like this in the end. So now we're gonna, I had a couple of them that I'd already worked on before and they're completely dry, so I'll show you how to shade them. We're gonna use honey brown. Okay, so I have to apologize if I just realized I had two microphones on, and so I don't know if my audio is gonna, in the beginning, if you guys were suffering through like an echo effect or a tunnel, like you're listening to me in a tunnel, but now I fixed it. So technology. So we're back to honey brown, and you don't want the shade to go all the way up. You want to keep the shade to the melted part down here. And it doesn't have to be perfect or anything special. You just want it to be a little bit of shading to warm it up, literally warm it up. So sort of like that. That's really all you have to do for the shading, nothing too spectacular, but do remember you cannot shade until that chalk paste or the gesso or whatever you're using is completely dry. Okay, and then we're going to come back with a little bit of white, and we're going to float along the top to brighten up that bleached sand. And I want it just to be a little bit brighter, so I'm going to go a second time. Okay, I'm going to repeat with my shimmer white, and you can use like a pearlescent and use that instead, or after you've varnished it, if you want to use a little bit of glitter up here, crystal glitter, because you want it to have this kind of glimmery surface. It makes it pretty, but it also kind of gives you the illusion of this is the area where the most of the melting is happening next to the flame, so it may have a wet appearance, so that kind of gives you that illusion. So I'm just going to come in with a little of that. Shimmer white goes a long way. Okay, so that's how you do it. So you're using the palette and kind of buttering it on, and then you're using your sponge stick to smooth it out while it's wet, and then when it's completely dry, you're using honey brown to shade. You're doing a float of white followed by a float of something like this product here. And then after it's completely dry, if it's a little bit too rough for you, you can always use a sanding block. All right. All of these have been sponged, these flames, in banana cream. And now I'm going to take some cadmium yellow. You can use whatever bright yellow that you have available. So you want it to be pretty bright. Oh, that paint's getting a little bit suspicious here. Oh dear. Okay. So you can either float it on or you can sponge it on the bottom. So these are pretty fun to create. We're going to layer a lot of different colors to, I don't know what that little spot is, but you're going to add so many colors that that little spot isn't going to make any difference. And I think when I can't remember if I did one coat of, yeah, I think I did 2 coats of sponging banana cream. And again, the reason I've got 10 flames instead of just 5 is that I'm working on 2 candles, but you don't have to watch me do all 10. After I do this, I will concentrate on 1 flame. So let me move those out of the way. Okay. I was just going assembly line there and forgot, oh, I'm filming this. You may not want to watch all of these being made. Ooh, I see I'm missing a color. I have to get some saffron yellow. Let me grab my saffron yellow. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to shade with Warm Sunset. But we're not going to do it all over. So we want to concentrate the flame color on the bottom to the right. So you're kind of going bottom and then up 2/3. And if you want to walk that in a little bit, you can. So just like that. Warm Sunset is just such a gorgeous color. Okay, it's not supposed to go all the way up to the top. You don't want to have a sharp line there. That's what I keep trying to fix it a little bit. Okay, so I'll finish doing these and then we'll come back. So that was Warm Sunset, and then we're going to take some honey brown. I think I want a little bit more on some of them. You can dry them and come back, because see, there's quite a bit there. We're going to add also some tiger lily and either tiger lily or scarlet, so that will further brighten that. But I'll be right back. I'm going to take a little bit of honey brown, and that's just going to be along the bottom. So that's just going to make that color a little richer. Okay, again, that was honey brown at the bottom of the flame. So where we put the warm sunset, we're now going to come back with either tiger lily or scarlet. So this is scarlet, it's slightly lighter, and that's the tiger lily. So I'm going to try the tiger lily. Yeah, tiger lily. So you can see that was the warm sunset. So this is a little bit deeper and brighter. Okay, so I'm gonna swipe that there, come back there, and then you can walk it in a little bit towards the center. Oh dear, 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 don't do that. So, there. Go up there and walk it in. Tap it out if you need to. At the bottom edge, bring it up, walk it in. Along the bottom, up the side, walk it in. Tap it off if you need to. Okay, I'm going to keep doing the rest of mine. So we're going to take saffron yellow, and we are going to do the left side a little bit. So just to add a little bit on there. Oh, yeah, left side. Left side, that's the left side. I've been working on the right side. Now I'm going to work on the left side with saffron yellow. So again, that's the saffron. I had to double check I had the right one. Now that we have these bright and beautiful, we're going to take a little bit of white, snow white, and the saffron yellow that we were using. We're going to use that as a highlight. So it's going to go up on the tip, and it can go a little bit down along the left side. Okay, and I'm going to come back and repeat that in just a moment. Okay, and you may need to repeat that. So again, it is white and saffron yellow, but it's probably more white than saffron. It's roughly half, but it favors the white just a little bit, I think. So you're going to do it until you achieve the amount of brightness that you want with that. It also helps to hide any kind of harsh lines that may be left over from your shading and previous floating. Okay, I think that's pretty good. There. The flames are lit. Pretty. Okay, this is not in my instructions, I don't think. But I know on this piece, I can tell I put a little bit of burnt umber on the flames. So that's optional. If you don't want that darkness there, you don't have to do it. But so just a little bit at the very base. So it's really, really a light shade line. You're not doing much because you don't want to take away from, oops, like that's way too heavy. You don't want to take away from the beauty of all these colors. Okay. All right, I have avocado and I have the holly. Oops, should have, okay, yeah. So again, I have 4 because I'm doing 2 candles. You will only have 2, probably, unless you're doing 2 candles. So we're going to shade with avocado first. All right. So we're going to add in the vein line. So I'm putting the dark up here on the bit that is the hill, the curve that is bending, up. So it's bending up. So I'm putting the dark along the curve that is bending up the hill of the leaf. And there's different ways that you can do this. So this is one way to do the shade and vein line. So the high point, the hill, is getting the shade. And I've got a hair. So again, I had prepped these earlier, and they were sponged with desert cactus, which is this color. It's really pretty. And desert cactus works really well with aloe. Aloe is the lighter of the two, so we'll use that for highlighting. And avocado works very well for shading. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to dry this, and then we're going to add in a little bit of shading at the base where the berries are. So we're going to continue with the avocado, and we're going to add in some shading at the base where the berries are going to go. You can bring it out a little bit there. Okay. So now we need to highlight with aloe. Although I'm going to use a little bit of the burnt umber to come back and add in, reinforce the shading. Not so much at the base, but like in this vein. Just going to lightly go back over where I previously put in a vein line, and now I'm using the burnt umber along that area just to kind of reinforce it. Okay. It's still a little wet. Again, it's burnt umber. So it's often helpful to shade with two different colors. It just adds a lot more dimension than having the one color. It just adds that important layer that, you know, you might get a little bit more in natural light. Okay, so now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take our country red, and this will help to tie it in to the berries and to the red that's in the candles. And you're just going to add in a little float of color here and there, probably more towards the darker side, but it can be on the lighter side too. Just a little bit. Okay, so just a little bit of red here and there of the country red. Okay, now I'm going to come back with the aloe. Aloe, where are you? Hello, aloe, 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 aloe. There it is, aloe. Sorry, I lived in England too long. Aloe. Okay. Alrighty. So I'm going to keep it more towards the top. I don't necessarily want to wipe out that shade down there. So we're going on the curve under. So we did the shade on the curve on the top. Now we're using the aloe on the shade under. Make sure I got all that. I don't know if I got that or not. Yeah, got that. Oops, that I didn't really want to do. I crossed over there a little bit. I think I got almost all of them. Okay. Now I'm going to use a dry brush. So right now everything's very, very split, and I want them to look less like there's two sides and they're split in half. So I'm going to take a dry brush and I'll get a smaller one. going to take my aloe. And for those who paint with me, know I love to drag the color over an edge when I'm dry brushing. It just does something really special. And in fact, on these, you could have done that mixture of yellow and white this way too. I didn't think of that at the time. I was busy floating. And you can certainly, on the lighter side, you can bring in a little bit more of that aloe. Just when you first, work with the brush, it'll be wetter than as you move along. So go very lightly initially before you start doing a lot of scrubbing of color on. Okay, and then you're really supposed to use this with warm white, but I already have my Snow White out. So you take the aloe and the warm white or Snow White, and we're going to go over the tips again. So let me get a little bit more. Okay, so that's just pretty much for the tips. Now, if we want, we can bring it on the lighter side. We can bring it in a little bit more. So that's the lighter side there. Okay. If you want, you can go a little bit lighter and just add white to your dirty brush and just add it to the tippy tips. And of course, if you want it to simulate snow, you could put it on all the little frosted edges, but I'm not going to do that. But you could. Okay, there we go. Yay. So that's that. So a little bit of red in there. You can see that. Okay. Okie dokie. So I'm going to take this brush and actually I'm going to start with a dry brush. I mean, a floating brush. Duh, duh, duh. And we're going to use a little bit of the burnt umber. Okay, so we need to know what is up and what is down. So if you're doing that, so you want to keep the shade towards the bottom. And the shade also will help to separate the berries. this one is going like that direction. So okay. And I should have 2 more berries somewhere, since I want to do them at the same time. Let me find. So this is where I tend to use the neon fiery red at the top of the berry. So it really makes things pop. So, but you also, if you wanted, you could use like the leftover tiger lily. Let's see what that looks like. I used neon fiery red, but I'm just curious what that looks like. Yeah. It's okay. It's okay, but I definitely prefer this neon fiery red. So I'm gonna have a bit of that. I probably could go a little heavier on the shading too. That's a little bit heavy. Okay. I think that I will wait to put in some of my little dots after I get it on, because I want to make sure I have everything going in the right direction. Okay, so that's berries and leaves and flames done. In the end, I came back and I added just a little bit of that iridescent shimmer white at the very tip. I just thought that looked cool. Okay, so we are moving on to the sign, which has been sponged or rolled in Thicket. Now we're going to take the lighter color, because let's see, Thicket, where are you? No, that's not the right one. It's going to show you the difference in the color. Ah, here it is. So that's Thicket, and oops, hello, that's Thicket, and this is Laurel. So they're very complementary to each other. You can float the Laurel along the top, or you can dry brush it. So okay, we're going to use this edge to our benefit. So if you if you dry brush it as opposed to floating it, so floating is with the brush, but if you do the dry brushing, it shows up a lot more of the texture of if you've rolled this. So if you've rolled it or sponged it, you're going to start picking up texture. See how it picks up texture? So I think in this case I do like the idea of dry brushing and not floating with an angled brush or a flat brush or however you shade. Okay, so that's kind of the way you do that until you get it to the lightness that you like. Okay, and then we are going to float the shade. We're going to shade on the bottom with our angled brush. But you could, if you wanted to dry brush it or sponge it, you could. And this might take 2 rounds. I might want to walk this up a little bit. So I am going to come back and reinforce the burnt umber at the bottom. So that is nice and highlighted, but I think I may even want it a little bit lighter. So I already have laurel in the brush, but I might use a little bit more. And then I'm going to add in a little bit of Snow White, so it's even a lighter color. And I'm just going to go back over some of this area just to lighten it up a little bit more. Oh, I forgot to turn that on. Okay, so I'm shading. These have been, I don't know how much. I didn't have my recording turned on. Surprise! So these can be shaded at the bottom in burnt umber, and I'm just hitting the bottoms, and I'm not doing any specific rhyme or reason to it. I'm just kind of keeping the dark to the bottom, and then we can come back with let me see, trying to remember the laurel, because this is thicket. I also did this one in desert cactus, and if you do desert cactus, then you would highlight in aloe and shade in burnt umber, but I kind of think I like thicket one better. But I will, while I'm here, I will go ahead and do some fast and dirty shading of this piece, so I can decide at the end, because you know the other option I showed you at the beginning is you can use red. You can use the country red if you want, and if you don't want to use green. So you're just tossing on a little color without being too concerned about it. I think that's a little bit of, oh, I don't know what color that is left over. Okay, so these were base coated in Thicket, and Laurel is its, oops, Thicket, and Laurel is its complementary highlight. So I'm going to put some Laurel out, which I think is already there, and I'm going to use a dry brush, I guess. Okay, so this is Laurel, and there is the dot for joy. I've got it somewhere. I'll have to finish it later because I have to go hunt and peck and see where I left it. So if you purchased this piece from me, the dot for joy is right next to the word on the flat pack that you got from me. Yeah, I do like doing that as a dry brush more than sponging. I think it gives you a little bit more control. Sometimes a sponge goes splat, and you don't want it to splat. You know, you want to make it look a little bit like you meant to do it. So sometimes you can't get as much control off of a sponge. Dry brushing creates some really interesting effects. Okay. And you could go a little darker if you wanted to. Okay, so this is a different highlight. And on this, I could come back with some white and lighten it up, but we're going to be doing some line work. So I'm not sure it's necessary to lighten it since we're going to be using white. Okay, so now we need aloe, because this is desert cactus, and aloe is its partner, its lighter partner. So I want to get off some of that color I was using there, because it doesn't go with our color scheme here. Okay, so this is aloe. Took that too low. Too low. Got carried away. Having fun. Dry brushing. I don't know what that is there. Okay. Alrighty. So, I am going to do some line work. And get most of the paint out of this brush. I'll have to properly clean it. These brushes, Dynasty 200 dry brushes that I love so much, they do like hold a lot of moisture, and you do need to clean them pretty well after you're done for the day. Okay, so we need some Snow White and a liner brush. All right. So that's what I did with that one. Again, no rhyme, no reason. I just kind of went with it. Set that there as my guide so I can see it. Okay. So think about where you want the fat part to be. That's where you're going to start the stroke. And then you're going to lift as you go. Okay, I want the fat stroke there, lift, and I'll put in dots after, I think. Okay, I'm going to go up the mountain, fat stroke, lift, fat stroke, lift. That wasn't perfect, but I don't care. This is kind of a short liner. I probably could have gotten a little bit longer one, but sometimes the longer ones don't give you as much fatness where you need it. Okay, fat stroke, thinner, lift, fat stroke, thinner, lift. I'm going to drive you guys crazy, aren't I? Sorry. Okay. Fat stroke, thinner, lift up. Is that better? Okay. Then fat stroke, thinner, lift up. I don't like the way that one worked, but if you touch it, sometimes it makes it worse if you try to fix it, so I'm just going to leave it. Fat stroke, thinner, there you go. All right, fat stroke, thinner, lift up. Plop it down, thinner, lift up. Plop it down, thinner, lift up. Plop down here, thinner, whee. Okay, and now I'm going to come in and add in dots. So 3 dots here, here, and here. 3 dots here, here, and here. Okay. Pink, pink, dink. And then pink, dink, dink. And here. Dink, dink, dink. Okay. So that way they kind of graduate in size. And then there's a dot also on the dot. A dot on the dot. There you go. A dot on the dot. Wow. Well, those are the elements. I still have the snowflakes to do, but whew, man. Trying to do 2 candles at once. It's a lot. So let's see if we can kind of quasi put this together. Quasi. All right. So don't forget, you need to do your backs on your pieces. So I already did this. I did it as a kind of stain with some goldy wax. Not Goldilocks, goldy wax. A goldish color wax. Okay, so remember what I said about the front and the back pieces. So if you get these flame ups, that means it's the back piece. So this is the way it goes. So we know this is the back because I've already done that. Okay, and your lights are going to go back through here. Let me move this back again. Okay, let's see. Okay, all right. So your little shim goes in the middle because you're going to need that space for your lights, and you need to glue your shim together to one of these pieces. It can go on the back of this piece or the front of this piece. And so I will have, I will show you how to do the lights as well. Okay. So those pieces go together. And you see you have this piece here that slots into the base. So let me just put this down. I don't want to mess that up. Let's see how this is looking. Just as a preliminary look-see. Okay, that says left. And that one is designed to go on the right, you can tell. And that says right. There's the hole. Okay. And that goes there. Okay, and then we've got these pieces. I believe that, well, no, they're not all the same. So this is a shorter left side and a longer right side. This is that. Oops, I'm getting dirty. Don't want to do that. Okay, so that's a longer piece here, and that must be like that. So I tend to spray fix and then spray varnish all the pieces individually before I glue everything together. I can still spray them again once they're together, but initially I like to spray all the pieces individually, and I use these two products. So this is my spray fix, and I'll do about 2 mists of these, and then this I will slowly build it up in layers. This is my natural glass spray varnish. So those are the products that I use and I sell on my site, teawife.com. teawife.com. So let's put the flames in. I think that there's only one big flame and then the rest are all the same size. So there's no big surprises, I'm pretty sure. I'd have to double check. Don't take my word for it, double check. Double check that everything fits correctly. Okay, we're just temporarily sticking it here just to see how it's looking. And then we need the signs, the banners. All right. So you could go a little bit lighter up here if you want. You could add a little bit of a float of white if you wanted to. That is up to you. Up to you, my friends, up to you. Okay. We still need to do the pop of white on that. On the berries, they need a pop of white. So you can kind of see the score lines here for that piece. I think this goes down a little bit further. You don't want it to get involved with the snowflake. So we have the snowflakes that go here. They're in another room. I'll worry about them later. Okay. There we go. And then there's that. And since you're dealing with texture, You might need a little extra glue. Normally you might not need quite so much, but you might need it on this because the texture, you want to make sure that everything is, you know, adhering to the piece underneath. So that's what that looks like. I was going to show you again what the red one looks like. So this one is Thicket and Laurel. This is Country Red, and that Glimmer Dust, whatever it's called, Glamour Dust paint. Okay. Oh, you know what? That is so funny. I did the wrong one. Okay. This one is Desert Cactus, not Thicket. So Desert Cactus matches the holly, and then the Thicket one matches the banner. Okay. So that's Desert Cactus. There are some score lines that you can kind of see where when you glue that down. So that's Thicket. It's impossible to tell. Let's see. On the camera, it's not really easy to tell. Okay, so that is Desert Cactus, Thicket, Desert Cactus, Thicket. I don't know if it makes a huge amount of difference. I don't know. And then, of course, this is Country Red. So there you go. So I will tack on the assembly of this so you can see how all the lights get glued in. You can use double-sided tape to glue in the battery operated lights, but in the end I've decided I quite like a low heat glue gun, hot glue gun, low heat hot glue gun. I found that to be the easiest. Okay, so I've glued those bits together. Now I need to go ahead and take this shim and line it up. So I always remember that the back piece always has these flame ups. On the front piece, it looks a little different. It looks more like a shading the way that the laser cuts. But the back, there's always flame up that comes from behind. So that's how you know this is the back piece and this is the back piece. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and take a moment and glue this down. So we're ready to glue these pieces together. Just to show you, I had done a red one as well. And the red one just tended to blend in a little bit too much. I like it still, but that one, anyway, they're different. But you can do it in red or green easily. But okay, so I've got this shim glued on now, and it goes together like this. I just did a kind of a faux aged look on the back. It's nothing special. It's not about the back of the candle, so I didn't spend a lot of time creating something wonderful. Okay, so then you need to have a 10 bulb LED battery operated light thing, because the 10 is the perfect size to go between all of these little dots here. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, okay. I thought it was 10. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. There's only 8. I thought there was supposed to be 10. Okay, so you have an extra. All right. That's fine. So you can use like double-sided tape if you want on this, or you can, actually I'm going to start it over on this side. Oh, and before I even start it, I almost forgot. I did this once before. Okay, so this is the back. The wire goes through the back. You pull it through. And you want to make sure that you pull through a lot of that excess plastic. So this is going to go on here with Velcro. Okay. So I'm going to glue this one on first. I think that should give us enough excess. If there's 8, I don't know. Now I don't know. I don't know whether I should start back here. Maybe I'll start back here. I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I guess that just gives you a little bit of flexibility, a little extra room. Okay, if that's the case, I will start with this one. Or maybe what I'll do is, yeah, I'll start with this one. Okay, that's going to go up there. So I've used a hot glue gun, I've used this cool glue gun, I've used double-sided tape, and after playing with it a bit over and over again, I am starting to like this cool glue gun. What I need is a plastic stylus. As if I have a plastic stylus, I can push down this. The glue is not as hot when you're using one of these cool glue guns. I hate using one of my brand new ones. Oh well, I'll just use the back end of it. So once it gets to a certain point, you can kind of smush it down. That's completely dry now though. Okay, so we have to go up and come back down. Go up and come back down. So we want to try to position that. Some there, and then I'm going to put some here as well. I tell you, I'm having so much trouble with these lights pulling, getting caught on things. Just want to get in the way of everything. Okay. There we go. Oh, I can see where you can start having issues. I'm going to see if I can pull this up. I need to make it a little bit tighter to the edge. So having the 10 just gives you that little extra flexibility that you need, because like this is not wanting to get there. Okay, come on. Phew, okay, got that one. So the other thing I learned is that you're better off gluing this shim onto this side here as opposed to this back piece. And that's because you want to know where your margins are. You don't want to get your wire up here. So if you have the shim down already, you're not going to be getting your wire caught on the edges. Okay. I also really need a pair of tweezers to help me squeeze those bits. Okay, so this one's easy. That's just going to go there. See, it's wanting to slide up on this edge here. Okay, so another one as well. Okay. Yep, just keep getting stuck on everything. Okay, so that's not going to make it. So hopefully the rest of them will make it. So that one goes there. Just go ahead and glue that one in. So I could have potentially used like 20. The 20, I think they're shorter between each bulb. But it doesn't matter if you have excess lights in here. And you can either just wind up the excess in here and it just gives you more illumination inside your piece, or you can snip off what you don't need. If you snip off the ends of the lights, it does not affect the lights. So, because these are all made in strips, wired strips with little LED bulbs on them, and so you could snip off excess, or you can leave them on and have a brighter candelabra. I'm gonna make it. But yeah, so because some of these 10 bulb pieces, these strings, these fairy lights, some of them vary ever so slightly from one another. So like the ones that I'm getting from Amazon might not match the ones you're getting, and so then the 10 lights are not measured the same distance between the bulbs, and you'll end up with problems like this where it's just not quite long enough in places. All right, I'm gonna put a bit right. That just keeps wanting to move over. All right, so that leaves me with a couple of extra lights. I guess I could have even had an extra one in here since I have the space. And then that one can go right there. So I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, got it all covered. All right, let me get that down. Get that down. So I do really like using a cool hot glue gun. So it's or what I mean is really a low temperature hot glue gun. So that works really well for this job. I think that's all I need that for. Okay, let that last dot dry a little bit. cool a little bit, I guess, really is what it's doing. Okay. Yeah, you do need to leave yourself enough room that this will go into the center. Okay. So the extra length could have gone here. That may have been helpful to have that extra length. Maybe this would be the second bulb where you leave yourself a little bit more space over here. But hey, it's going to work. A little bit more in there. Get that to... Okay, now I can go ahead and glue this down. All right, I'm going to take a moment and do that. That to be the easiest. All right, well, I hope you guys have fun painting yours, creating yours. I know it's going to be a real hit this Christmas, and thank you so much for supporting me and watching me. I appreciate it more than you can know. So it's dark outside. It's evening. So good night, my friends. Love you. Bye. Kathy McAllister, Teawife Creations. Bye-bye.